Hey, good Monday morning, everybody. Mr. Marquardt again with you here with a couple quick announcements. Today's video is going to be relatively short compared to the last few. Just a couple quick announcements for us all. So, really big stuff coming up. So, next week, Monday, we have our very first chapter test. Next week, Monday. So, that means we are close to the end of our chapter, and because of that, all homework is going to be due at the end of the chapter. So by next week, Monday, we got to have all of our homework turned in if we still want to get 100% for that homework. If we turn our homework in, if we're still missing stuff by next week, Monday, after next week, Monday, if we turn stuff in after our test, we can only get up to 60% credit for it. So make sure that we are being proactive in getting our homework turned in if we want to get full credit. Otherwise, the best we can do after that is 60% of our homework scores. So that is not what we want to have happen. So again, make sure that you are getting that turned in before our test on Monday next week. So again, chapter test next week, Monday. We're going to talk about what's on that in just a minute here. But again, next week, Monday, chapter test. Make sure you put that on your calendar, circle it. And we'll remind you again as you go through the week too. Today, just want to make sure our toolkits are filled in because we can use those for our test. Go over a couple of tips, what's on the test. And then if you have any questions on any of the closure problems, which is our homework for tonight, make sure you come into office hours or email your grading teacher so we can help you guys get squared away on that. All right, so some helpful tips. So what you need to know for our test. So first things first, to find some chapter 1 resources for our test. If you go to the resources page on It's Learning and you click on CPM Chapter 1, and then once that drops down, you're going to click on Closure and Review Materials. And there will be a page in there that has a whole bunch of good stuff in there for you to look at. It's going to have all the tips, what's on the test, things like solving equations, evaluating expressions like square roots, absolute value, or squaring different numbers, that kind of thing. Diamond problems, identifying a family of function based on the shape of its graph. And what else is there? Function notations, deciding if a relation is a function or not. And then domain and range, what we were talking about last week, Wednesday and Thursday. So hopefully that stuff sounds familiar to us. And the good news is all of it's on our toolkit. So if we don't have our toolkit filled in, let's make sure we get those out because this is what should be on it. So we're going to go through this in a little detail here again. Make sure we have our toolkits filled out. If it's not, this is a great time to get that filled out. So again, we have absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. This is going to be always a positive number. So this is always positive. Coming out of an absolute value. Our diamond problems, we've been getting more and more practice with those, where the sides are just random numbers, x and y. The top part of our diamond is the two numbers multiplied together, and the bottom is the two added together, like we see in our example over here. We have a bunch of different families of functions we've talked about, and again, we're going to talk about in a lot more detail as we go through the year. We've got our linear equations, so our lines, our inverse variation functions, our exponential functions. We have our quadratic function with our parabolas. Make sure when we're talking about our functions that we know how to describe these functions. What do the graphs look like? Where are these different graphs contained? What are the shapes? Are there special points like a minimum or a maximum? Are they going up, down, sideways? Are there certain numbers that we can plug in, certain numbers that we can't plug into those functions? All that kind of stuff is going to be good to know for our test next week. And then we have square root and cube root on the bottom as well. So make sure we get all the stuff filled in because we can use this when we take our test next week. So that's the front side of this. On the back, we've got a whole bunch of function notes and stuff we talked about last week. Again, we have our inputs and our outputs. Input is what we get plugged into our function. Y is what we get coming out of it. So again, our input is always or usually represented by x, and our output is notated by y usually. Then the other thing that we've been seeing more and more in our homework is that notation, f of x. So f of x is equal to y. So those two things are interchangeable and they mean exactly the same thing, as we can see right here. So f of x is equal to x squared minus 7. We plug a 2 in, so f of 2 is 2 squared minus 7, so negative 3 in our example. So if that's confusing us, make sure we are asking our grading teachers and coming into office hours for some help. All right, and then we had functions. Definition of a function is, again, a relationship of variables where any one input has exactly one and only one output. What that looks like on a graph is something that passes the vertical line test. So vertical line test is a really quick and easy way to see if a relationship is a function or not. Or if you can draw a vertical line through a graph and it only crosses that graph once, then we have a function. If it crosses more than once, we do not have a function. And then domain and range, which is what we talked about last week, Wednesday and Thursday. It's the set. Domain is the set of possible inputs for a function, so we get all the possible x's you can plug in. Range is all the possible y's you can plug into a function, or not plug in, but all the possible y's you can get out of a function. Get out of a function. And then we notate it with an inequality like we have on the bottom right here. So again, pause the video, go back at different points to make sure we have our toolkits filled in. There will be a PDF of that on It's Learning as well, but make sure we have that filled out and ready to go. If we have any questions about any of the stuff on it, please make sure you reach out to us or stop into office hours so we can help you out. Again, our homework for tonight is to finish the closure assignment, which is 1-84 through 191. So that's what these problems look like. If you have any questions, again, please let us know or stop into office hours. That being said, again, study for your test next week. Otherwise, we'll see you in live class tomorrow. Have a great Monday, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.